Hello, welcome to a Board Deck and Dice preview. Today we are looking at Streets. Streets is for 1 to 4 players. It's a tile laying game from Sinister Fish and is sort of like the spiritual follow-on from Villagers. Everything you can see now is prototype form, but is fairly finalised. This is prototype of the deluxe components. Everything you see is wood, including the money here, and this will probably be cardboard in the non-deluxe version. Apart from the meeples will be meeples, but they won't quite have so much detail. We have shoppers here, we have hipsters, we have parents, and we have tourists, and these all come in a pleasing variety of colours and designs on the meeples. So you can see there's the different colours have different designs, there's different ethnicity and all sorts on those, which is really nice to see, especially on these kind of wooden components where you wouldn't normally see anything like that. So that's really cool. Every player will get their 5 ownership tokens. The streets will be set up with a central station, which will have one of each kind of person on, and kind of perpendicular to that will be the city park. There is a handy crib for how to score and do the turn sequence, and also it talks about the business expansion too, which we'll have a little look at in a moment. So each player will get 3 of these building tiles, and on your turn you will place one, and if it closes a street you will score that street and you will pick up a new building. They have quite a lot on. This top left corner is for the business expansion, which we'll talk about later. This is how the street will score, and this is how many people of that colour will come onto this tile when it's built, but also can affect scoring. So here you're going to have 1 or 2 of those basically. Here you have 2, so 2 pink people will come onto this street. Here you've got 1 blue. If it's a wild, then no one will come onto the street. When placing streets, the rules are that you must kind of continue a street if you can, or end one. But the only thing you can't do is create a double street. So there's no circumstances that you can create a double street. If later on something like this had happened, then that would not be an option to place. You could place it this way round, however, but creating a double streak is a no-no, as well as a double street. So what might happen is a player might play here. They would place the 2 meeples from supply onto this one here, and then they place one of their supply tokens, one of their ownership tokens. A street can be 5 long, and this is an enclosing street because it stops the street, it turns the street away. So if someone was to play a street like this, for example, which they might very well do given the example, then they would close this street, and then this street will be scored building by building. No one owns this one, so we don't score this one. However, this one is owned by the black player, and it scores 2 for every blue or wild symbol, basically. We have 1 blue here, but there's also a blue pointing into the street. So that would be 4 plus 2 for the 2 people on it. So it's plus 1 for every person on the street. Now, this player that's closed off the street, after this has been scored, will move any people that they can. And at the minute, they can only move blue because there's only a blue to go to. And they will choose which blue valid house building that this person will go to. So the blue would move this blue person to here, because that's good for them. They're going to get more points. It's their blue owned building, so that will be good for them. However, if someone else had a blue valid building, it was the only blue valid building, they would have to move that blue person to that building. The person who closes the street is the person who gets the choice. Everyone else on this street will get to stand up because they are now FOMO, fear of missing out. So they're looking for the first building they can go to that is the same colour as them. So if later on, let's find a pink for tourists. If later on someone placed a tourist building here, So black did, they would get their 1 from the supply, and then all the tourists would move across to there as well. So closing a street gives you a lot of choice in how to manipulate the people that are on the board. Whenever someone's standing up, they will look for the first opportunity to move across. The game will continue that way until the tile stacks are done, and one stack, sorry, and then you will have a final scoring where you score half points for everything that hasn't been capped off yet. So as the game goes, you might see something like that, where the red player would then place that there, and then this green would come along here. We'll do another scoring just to show how it goes. This time the black player is going to cap off the street, so they will get to do the scoring, and you just take the money. So this one gets 6 points for being an enclosing building, which it is, plus 2, so that will be 8 for the red. The black would get 4 for every wild. There isn't a wild, so they just get the 4 for the people. And then that would be it, and then they would decide where these people move. Unfortunately, there's no valid buildings, so all these people would stand up, and so next time someone places a blue shops or a tourist attraction, all those people will move on. There are 2 mini kind of variants in the box. The first is individual player powers, which just give you a starting power. For example, the hipster counts all hipster legend counts all yellow symbols as wild, including the one on that card, which can add up your score. And then the business supply, the business expansion. Now this gives you something else to do. What we haven't talked about is what happens when you run out of your ownership tokens. Well, then you've got to abandon a building, and abandoning a building means just taking your ownership off it and losing any chance to score. These guys will stand up and move if at all possible. Why would you abandon a building? Well, sometimes it might be pay dividends to move a big group of people onto another building. However, when you abandon a building with the business expansion, you also get a wooden token matching the business type. At the end of the game, you will score for complete sets of the 4 business tokens, and you will score for having the most of each type of business token. You will also take a business token when a street's closed with 1 or more of your properties on. You will look at all the properties you have and their business types, and you will choose 1 business type to take. Some of the properties give you double business types, like they give you double things down the bottom, so it gives a bit more to think about with this, and yeah, adds a bit more to abandoned buildings. So the game is quite simple to pick up. That's basically all the rules. As I say, there is a solo mode in there as well, which doesn't require any more components. You're just simply drawing tiles for the they give them a name, but the rival, that's it, the rival. You're drawing tiles for the rival and placing them according to some rules. That is a very quick overview of how to play Streets. Okay, let's talk Streets. Firstly, before I get on to my views of how the game works, I do want to point out that although I was not paid to produce this video, I have been paid to market Streets through another Facebook group. So do please bear that in mind. To kind of counter that, I am going to give my negative thoughts first. So if you just wanted to watch the overview of my negative thoughts, then you can do that. But yeah, I don't usually give huge opinions on previews anyway, but the first thing I should say is that I will be backing this with my own money. So that probably gives away how I feel about it. I'm not receiving a free copy from the Kickstarter, which sometimes happens with preview videos. I will be backing this with my own money because I think it's that damn good. So that being said, what things might you need to look out for? Not negative so much, but what if it's not your cup of tea, will you not be won over in this game? So if you don't like tile laying and piecing together a puzzle of how to score the most, then you're probably not going to find anything to win you over in Streets apart from the gorgeous components and artwork. I do think it is cleverer than some tile laying games and not as obvious what to do, but if you're not a fan of the genre of tile laying, from Carcassonne all the way up to Whistle Stop, then you're probably not going to enjoy what Streets has to offer. The second one is kind of similar to that, is that I can see Streets, especially at 4 players, having a little bit of analysis paralysis. Now, I don't think it's often going to be a major problem, because often you're trying to set people up to make moves that you can then pounce on. But especially at higher counts, in a 2-player game, it's kind of cat and mouse between who caps off the streets, who encloses the streets, and you can set people up more easily, and that gets lost the more players you add. I've only managed to play at 2 players because of lockdown. I would have no hesitation playing at 4 players, but if you do have people who suffer with analysis paralysis, there are going to be a few options, and they might not be able to make all their decisions until their turn. They can plan A and plan B, and they've only got 3 tiles in their hands. But there is quite a lot to think about for a game that teaches so quickly. And then, I mean, I think I'm at the end of what I have to say that's slightly neutral negative. For me, like I say, those things are not negatives. It just means that sometimes if I know someone has AP, I might not play with this one, but I don't think it's going to be the worst. You always get 3 tiles, and 1 or 2 of them are going to fit your plans more. The kind of things you're looking for are which people can you move around. Now, the rules do seem a little bit counterintuitive at first. When you play your first game and you enclose a street and you realise you've got to move some people, you kind of think, wow, where do these people move? Normally there's some complicated rules about they will go to the nearest blue building. If they can't go to the nearest blue building, then this player decides. But no, none of that. The active player decides, and we read that and we were like, oh, sounds a bit overpowered. But actually, it's key to one of the core things that the game revolves around, and that is you need to be enclosing streets. That's a really important mechanic, and you need to be, or you want to be, snapping up the people who are in fear of missing out, who are stood up as much as possible to get these massive combos. Now, our first game, we didn't quite realise that, and it's why I really like the business variant with these white tokens, because that encourages abandoning your buildings. But the game design is really tight, even down to the amount of ownership tokens you get. You get 5. And when you consider that a street's length can only be 5, you realise that if you're going to have a street totally owned by yourself, you're going to need to abandon some of those buildings. And in a base game, abandoning a building, you can kind of not realise the importance of that until you've had a game or 2. Whereas when you're getting business bonuses from abandoning buildings, now that's another bonus. And it always seems counterintuitive to abandon a building with a lot of people on, but remember, you get to decide where those people go. And if you've got a building of the same colour waiting, then you start to see combos you can set up. I have played this 5 times now in the short time I've had it, because firstly, the 2 people I played it with on separate occasions both wanted to play it again. And secondly, it's just so good. And every time I still feel like there's more I'm learning and more combos that I can do. For a small game that is easy to teach, that fits in the same size box as Villagers, there is a lot of thinking to be had here. So enclosing a street is really important. And we went from our first game where we were just kind of putting them on the ends wherever we can, to actually not wanting to cap off one end of the street, because it gives your opponent a chance to dictate where the people who are going to have fear of missing out on the new buildings will go. Of course, again, you can set that up in advance so that you are the only person who has buildings of those colour. It just works brilliantly. The other advanced variants, the custom player powers, I think they're really cool. They add a lot. They seem balanced, but they do require you to lean into their play style, particularly there's one that lets you put 2 of these ownership markers out at once and double the score, and that can be really, really powerful. But then you're assigning 2 of your ownership markers, so you've really got to think about doing shorter streets and really capitalizing on that double valuation. The components, even at this stage where I have to say they're still prototype, are absolutely phenomenal. I cannot see any need for any changes at this point. It's really nice to see a game taking on the diversity with different ethnicities of meeples even. So like every place they could have a diverse range of people, they have got it. And yeah, you know, the wooden money, which is amazing. Is it necessary? It's points trackers? No, none of it. No bling is necessary. Is it damn nice? Yes, it is. The box is absolutely rammed full of this stuff. It's just a wonderful, wonderful package. As I've hinted at, the game teaches in minutes. You just talk about this really simple rule of you either follow a street on or you turn it round, and the only hard and fast rule is you can never have a double street. I found out after my first game, and you can only do that one if you're coming in off another street, and that will still close things even if the sky is towards it. You build up these really funky looking towns, I guess, full of streets, and sometimes this is more gridded, sometimes this is going out all over the place. Like I say, the 5 games I've had have been full of variety. For my money, when I'm playing with gamers, I will always include the 2 variants that are in the box. I think they just add a nice little bit more thought. But I could play this with my family as well without putting those in. They're not that complicated, and I'm sure they could grasp them, but it's just another thing to think about. I think this whole package is more accessible rules-wise than Villagers, while offering at least the same depth, if not more. Certainly the complexity to ease of teaching ratio is impressive in this package. If you like tile laying games, if Carcassonne is your jam, then you're going to love this. It has this interesting moving people mechanic that reminds me a little bit of Santa Monica, but is different because it's more more tactical, because you're building stuff together. You're not just considering your own tableau, you're considering this joint tableau that you build. So yeah, I've been really, really impressed with this a lot, and I hope you can see I'm genuine. As I have said, and I want you to be aware of, I have been paid to market this game on Board Game Exposure, but I offered to do this video while I had the prototypes. I don't do a lot of Kickstarter previews these days for the reason that I'm also doing marketing for Kickstarters. But every now and again I will do one, and it's usually because I know and like the person behind it, or I just love the project and I just want to put some more positivity out there about it. In this case, it's both. I think Sinister Fish are an amazing team. The thought that has gone into this, I'm not sure there will be many changes between now and fulfillment. I think this is pretty much done. There are a few maybe graphic things to do. The rulebook needs finalizing, but this is just such a good example of what you will have in the final product that I just felt it's worthwhile doing a video. Thanks very much for watching a gushing Board Deck and Dice video. We will see you next time.